Australia, killing at least 18 people, forcing tens of thousands from their homes. Many of those residents, as well as tourists, are seeking shelter now.
Which has seen temperatures exceed 40 Celsius in every state. Officials are predicting a day of extreme danger with rising temperatures.
Since the fires in January, there was no greenery left here for any of the animals. The fires just absolutely decimated everything. So we've been out on a daily basis putting food on the ground for the wombats, wallabies and roos, and up in the trees we've placed fruit for the birds and possums, gliders, to help support them through this time of no food. So we've been feeding the wildlife out here since the beginning of January, and it appears that we've only got the survivors that were close to our local community. There's a group of us that go out feeding, and we tend to see the same, if not similar, animals about. There's not many of them, and we really need to protect what's out there. We've got 40 hectares of land that they're trying to develop, and we need to keep that land as old growth forest. It's a Pandora's box of flora and fauna, and we really need to keep that to support our animals. So the bushfires this summer burnt approximately 46 million acres of land. We've lost 3 billion estimated animals, and from that point of view, I don't agree that we should be logging just at the moment. I think we need to reinforce our wildlife. I know it's not sustainable to not log, but for the moment I think we need to give it up.
Timber is really the core of our business, so if we don't have any timber supplies, then we can't do the work that we need to do. Most of our work's building stables and fencing for horse studs, and majority of that's in Australian hardwood. Forest Corp New South Wales is fairly sustainable with the practices that they use in the forestry currently. There are some areas that aren't sustainable, but I would imagine that the hardwood supplies will peter out in the next 5 to 10 years, and there will be more stringent rules and regulations on where they can log. So I think it will change, and it may become more user-friendly to use pine, which is a very sustainable type of timber. Logging stops in hardwood forests, it would affect our business at the moment probably by 80 to 90%. If forestry stopped logging in the pine forest, would probably take up that other 10%, so we'd be out of business.
All our resource comes from radiata pine plantations. So there, in the Mossvale area where we are, there's 3 state forests. There's Penrose, Langlow and Wingelow. So we've got a wood supply agreement with state forests, so that's where the majority of our resource comes from. We've just had the fires through New South Wales and Victoria, so a significant reduction in the volume of timber available to go through the mills next year. Really. So this year there's a glut of fire damaged timber, so nearly every mill in New South Wales is cutting mainly burnt logs. They should last the rest of this calendar year, but after that, because radiata pine doesn't survive a fire, hardwood does, but radiata pine doesn't. So once the radiata pine forest is burnt, the trees die and start to rot. So you get about 12 months to process that. So every log we're cutting at the moment is a burnt log. That'd be the same for most mills in New South Wales. Other than losing forest through fire, basically every 30 or 35 years there is a rotation through the plantation, so that the trees are planted. There'll be a thinning done, you know, somewhere between 16 and 20 years. There'll be a second thinning done, you know, 5 or 6 years after that, and then there'll be a clear fall when the trees are, you know, sort of bring the clear fall age down. It used to be 35, now it's more likely to be about 30 years. So it is, you know, by definition sustainable, and you know it is the one renewable building product we've got. I think, you know, my biased view is that timber should be used for every building application where it can be. You know, obviously for multi-storey and certain structures, you know, steel and concrete are much more viable building materials, but where timber can be used, I think it adds great environmental credentials to society if we use, you know, the best renewable building product we've got.